My parents let my sister's family move into my apartment temporarily while I was working overseas. When I came home, my stuff was boxed in the garage. They called me ungrateful, so I made one call to the landlord. The next morning, their keycards stopped working. I, 27F, am an English teacher who has been living in Casablanca, Morocco for the past 9 months. Before I left last fall, I handed my parents a spare key to my apartment and gave them simple instructions. Just water my plants twice a week and pick up my mail. My parents and I are close. We video chat a couple times a month, so I trusted them completely to handle anything that might come up at home. I even texted my mom from the airport the day I left, joking, "Don't let my place burn down." She laughed and promised everything would be fine. Fast forward to last Tuesday. My school abruptly announced it was closing early for renovations. All teachers were asked to wrap up classes immediately. My program was supposed to run into the summer, but they changed the schedule on a whim. I scrambled to catch a flight back home. I spent the flight frantically thinking about what I'd come back to. I told myself it would be normal, that the apartment would be just as I left it, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Finally, around 11 p.m., I landed and took a taxi directly to my apartment building. I was exhausted after the 11-hour journey, but relieved to be nearly home. When I arrived at the building and climbed up to my apartment door, I fumbled for my keys. The lock was a little stiff. I thought maybe it was just old, but now I realize it had been replaced recently. I pushed the door open and froze. The air smelled faintly of baby powder mixed with something else that shouldn't have been there. The living room was completely transformed. I stepped in and could barely believe my eyes. There were bright plastic toys scattered on the floor. A stroller was parked in the hallway. Children's drawings were taped to my walls. It was like a daycare had moved in. The furniture was all wrong too. My plain brown leather couch was gone. In its place sat a huge, colorful sectional covered with cartoon pillows. My glass coffee table was nowhere to be found. Instead, a cheap wooden table with crayon scribbles on it stood in the corner. Even the curtains were different. My sheer curtains were replaced with bright ones printed with animals. I noticed a half-empty baby bottle with old milk on the kitchen counter. My front door had a new deadbolt that I didn't recognize. I realized how still and heavy my heart was, as if my breath had been taken. Then I heard a soft giggle. Vanessa, my older sister 32F, emerged from the den with a grin, holding my 5-year-old nephew. Trevor, her husband 34M, had my 2-year-old niece asleep on his shoulder. They looked at me and said, "Surprise, sis. We missed you." My brain went blank. Vanessa launched into an explanation as if she expected me to be totally fine with this. She said with a smile, "Mom told me you decided to extend your lease for another year and wouldn't be back until next summer, so we thought it'd be okay to stay here while you were away." My mouth literally fell open. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just stared at them, feeling my blood run cold. If their story was true, it meant they'd moved my entire life out and turned my apartment into theirs, all without me knowing for months. I suddenly did the math in my head. If I was supposed to be back this summer and they treated my return as next year, then they'd moved in around last November, about 5 months ago. I was completely stunned. Vanessa continued chatting like I was going to laugh it off. She said they needed extra space for the kids and that our parents thought this would keep the apartment warm instead of being empty. I barely heard her. All I could think was, they took over my home. My sister held out a crumpled piece of paper. It was the new lease they had my parents sign, pretending it was me extending the contract. I remember just standing there, hands at my sides, blinking. When I finally spoke, my voice came out sharp. "What the hell is this?" Vanessa looked confused and replied, "What do you mean?" As if I was in the wrong. A dozen feelings rushed through me. Shock, anger, disbelief. My mind was racing. They changed the locks. They removed my stuff. They called me an extended tenant. I felt sick. Suddenly, I was shaking. I muttered something about needing to call Mom and rushed to the couch, which I realized was still there, though my actual couch was gone. I sat down hard and took out my phone with trembling fingers. It was 3 a.m. I dialed Mom. When she answered, still sounding half asleep, I tore into her. "Did you know Vanessa moved in? What is going on?" My mom squeaked in surprise and stammered that Vanessa really needed a place, that there was an emergency at her old apartment. She told me, in a rush, that Vanessa's old apartment had a dangerous mold problem and the kids were getting sick. She insisted they had to leave immediately. She kept saying they thought I'd be fine with them being here, that it was a favor. I tried to interrupt, but she kept rambling. My dad grabbed the phone from her next. Before I could say a word, he started raising his voice. "What would you do if Vanessa was in this situation?" he yelled. He was mad at me for making a fuss. He said, "Think of the kids, Alexandria," as if that was the end of the argument. My mother added in a tearful voice, "We did this to help you, keeping your place occupied so squatters didn't move in. We thought you'd be happy your plants got watered." She sounded defensive, like this was supposed to be a selfless act. Inside, I was furious. How dare they lie to me? I finally yelled back that this was my home and my lease, that I never gave permission for any of this. I said they had no right to decide my life without consulting me. Vanessa, who had been awkwardly hovering behind them, started crying and saying she was sorry and thought this was okay. I snapped that no, this was not okay, and I wanted everyone out. In a more controlled voice, I told Vanessa and Trevor they needed to pack up and go. Trevor said softly, "Alex, we're sorry, we can go." Vanessa grabbed her kids, and as quietly as possible, they gathered their things. I directed them to pack up quickly and leave by morning. It was absolutely surreal seeing my sister pack my dishes into boxes with tears in her eyes. My parents parents helped shove boxes and old furniture onto the curb. Vanessa promised she'd keep in touch, but it didn't sound convincing. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, they all left. As soon as the door closed behind them, I locked it and collapsed on the couch. I felt like I'd been kicked in the stomach. The apartment was silent except for the echoes of what had just happened. I sat still for a long moment, my mind blank. Then, trembling, I started inspecting. The coffee table had dropped crumbs on it. The fridge was unlocked. A broken toy was under the sofa. This was my space. I had to see it with fresh eyes. The next morning, after some coffee and a lot of deep breaths, I started documenting everything. I took out my phone and started photographing every mark and broken item. The holes in the bedroom wall, the torn curtains, the half-spilled diaper on the bathroom floor. I paced from room to room. More stains on the carpet, a dent on the front door frame where a baby gate had been pried off. I found cereal on my kitchen rug and a big scratch on the wood floor. I even found a Barbie shoe behind the couch. I swear, I took at least 100 pictures. Then I stumbled on something in the trash pile outside, an eviction notice from Vanessa's old landlord. It was dated a couple of weeks before they moved in and said she had been evicted for non-payment of rent. My jaw dropped. Suddenly, I saw everything clearly. The mold emergency story was total nonsense. Vanessa had been kicked out, and my parents just decided to slip her into my apartment while I was away. All that extra space story was a lie. I sat down heavily on my couch and felt anger and betrayal rising up. They had lied to me to get their child out of a lease. I almost felt sick. How could they use us like this? Vanessa and I used to be close, and my parents always seemed supportive. Now I realized they had been conspiring behind my back for months. I locked the eviction notice in my pocket and headed straight to my parents' house. My parents' garage is usually organized, but not this time. It looked chaotic. My boxes and furniture were stacked in disarray under plastic sheeting. I pried up a tarp, and everything was soaked. They must have tried to cover my stuff during a recent rainstorm, but clearly it didn't work. My dining table's wood was warped and buckling from water. Cushions from my sofa were mildewing. Even the laptop bag was damp inside. I spent hours sifting through boxes. I pulled out just about every sentimental thing I own. Most of it was ruined. Moldy photo albums, boxes of old cards soaked through, mom's gifts for me disintegrating in their packaging. Then I checked one last batch of boxes where I usually kept valuables. They were nearly empty. My heart dropped. I pulled out a ripped cardboard box that had my custom gaming PC inside. The PC itself was gone. Case and components all gone. All the cables and the tower were missing. My watch box was there, but empty. The tray of inherited jewelry in a small velvet box was there, but the items were gone. I rifled through every shelf. The stand meant for my jewelry was still, but all bracelets and rings had vanished. I yelled for my mom on my phone, letting her hear my voice shake. "Mom, what happened to the silver necklace Grandma gave me?" She sighed and didn't meet the question. I forced myself to finish inventory. $8,000 worth of stuff was missing or destroyed. PC, laptop, watches, jewelry, my gaming chair, everything. Plus, the cost of fixing the apartment would be around $1,500. So I'm out nearly $10,000. My wallet felt empty just thinking about it. I called my landlord, Professor Chen, once I got home. He answered immediately, thank goodness. I calmly explained the situation. He was horrified and told me to keep everything documented. He said I absolutely should consider small claims, that this was trespassing and theft, plain and simple. Despite the shock, I am trying to stay level-headed. Vanessa hasn't responded to my calls or texts. She's blocked me on social media too. My parents, on the other hand, keep calling. They're pushing me to apologize and forgive and forget. My dad actually told me, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Think of the kids," as if that's supposed to solve this. My mom cried a bit on the phone and said they only did this to help. It felt like they thought I'd just get over it. To make things worse, our whole extended family is chiming in. In the family group chat, my aunts and uncles are pretty much picking sides. Right now, half of them think I'm the monster for evicting a pregnant sister, completely ignoring why, while others are mortified at what my parents did. I had relatives I barely know texting me, saying I should be ashamed. Vanessa even posted a vague status about how my heart has been broken, and people are assuming I did something terrible. I've kept calm and methodical through all of this. I've got a folder on my laptop with the eviction notice scan, photos of damage, and a timeline of events. I've been lining up paperwork and witnesses. The kind concierge in my building even offered to sign a statement that I had no say in these move-in arrangements. Professor Chen told me to be thorough. He said even small things, like the moved couch and dead plants, reinforce my case. I have to admit, I feel conflicted and guilty on some days. I hate that I had to throw my family out on short notice. I hate that I haven't heard an apology, aside from Vanessa's "I'm sorry," but I know in my gut I did the right thing. No one gets to treat me or my home like this. Update 1. 3 days later. They're out, but now I'm seeing the real damage. 3 days have passed since that surreal night, and I've finally had time to collect my thoughts. Vanessa, Trevor, and the kids got out of my apartment on the 47th hour of the 48-hour notice. Immediately after they left, I went through my entire place room by room, trying to catalog the damage. My stomach churned with every discovery. Even before I started taking photos, I noticed how wrong everything looked. The air smelled faintly of bleach. They clearly scrubbed something, probably to cover up messes, and stale baby powder. On the way to each room, I found little clues: a toy car under the couch, a children's drawing on the fridge, and a torn book by the front door. In the living living room, the coffee table had ring stains and dried Cheerios on it. The plush throw pillow that I use as an accent was ripped. One of my plants had been knocked over and was dead. Every corner told a story of someone else living here. I stopped to take some pictures, then took inventory, starting with the worst spots. Living room. The beige carpet is now stained with large, muddy patches. The coffee table's legs were scraped to wood. My $200 leather couch is gone. Vanessa told me later she sold it. In its place is a threadbare sectional. Even the TV stand was broken. I found a squashed candy wrapper and a juice box cap under the couch. Bedroom. A big hole is ripped out of one bedroom wall where a child gate had been yanked off. My bed frame is scratched. One of my curtains was mangled. They may have tried to open the window while they were gone. A high chair with spaghetti sauce stains is in the corner. Definitely not mine. Kitchen. A few cabinet doors are completely ripped off the hinges. Hinges broken. A plastic sippy cup with dried milk is stuck to the counter. The crumbs in the toaster are fresh. My knife block was overturned. Knives thankfully still in drawer, but the board is gone. A baby bottle brush was in the sink, dried with soap scum. This is my kitchen. It feels like an intruder lived here. Bathroom. 4 floor tiles are cracked as if heavy toys were thrown. The shower curtain rod is bent. The bath mat was taken. I saw a thin towel on the floor instead. The soap dish has melted plastic glued in place, like one of the kids tried to stick toys on the wall. Even the medicine cabinet had a scribble from a marker. It was like a tornado swept through with tiny toy tornado sirens. I paced around, camera in hand, taking dozens of photos. I even found a stuffed toy under my dresser that one of the kids had apparently forgotten. Each photo I took was another knot in my chest. Then I saw something under the pile of trash on my porch, a crumpled eviction notice from Vanessa's previous landlord. It was dated a few weeks before she moved in here, and it said in big letters that Vanessa had been evicted for missing rent payments. My stomach dropped as I read that. The black mold story was totally, obviously a lie. They had just needed any excuse to get out of Vanessa's lease. As soon as Vanessa and her family were finally gone, I drove straight to my parents' house to inspect my things in their garage. Normally it's neat and dry in there. They keep our tools and holiday decorations. Today though, it was absolutely soaked. They had covered my furniture and boxes with plastic tarps when it rained, but clearly that was not enough. My couch cushions were covered in mold. Wooden table legs were warped and cracked. Even my bookshelf had bent shelves. A funny, not funny, sight. My duffel bag of old clothes was floating in a puddle on the floor. I picked up box after box. Almost everything inside was ruined or gone. My heart sank when I found the vacuum-sealed storage bins I kept my winter coat and sweaters in. Now they were full of mold and gone stiff. But then I discovered the really awful stuff. My valuables were missing. I went through every container in the garage. Here's what's vanished. Gaming PC. My entire computer, 3000, is gone. The gaming rig, all the monitors, everything. Even the keyboard and mouse are missing. Designer watches. I had a small collection, about $4,000 total. The cases are there, but empty. Inherited jewelry. All the pieces from grandma, a silver necklace, and a ring, are gone. I even checked the jewelry boxes they were in. Other items, my stamped comic books, my vintage camera tripod, also gone. My blood was boiling. I demanded to know what they did with my stuff. When I called my mom again, this time from their living room, still on speakerphone, she acted like I was being paranoid. She basically said, "I figured you wouldn't need all that stuff out here since you liked Morocco so much." I don't think I've ever been more speechless. My own mom telling me she disposed of my belongings because she assumed I didn't care. Dad just sat there silently. By the time I finished counting everything, I realized I'm out nearly $9,500. That's like 2 months of my salary. Just gone. I snapped back to reality and called Professor Chen. I sent him some photos in a text and explained the mess calmly. He was appalled. He texted back, "WTF, they did that?" and told me to document every single thing. He said, "You have every right to make them pay. Keep everything and put this all in small claims." Even with all the evidence and logic on my side, I feel drained. I hated doing it, but I stood by my decision. Vanessa's family is out, 48 hours are up. I did offer them a hotel voucher and sleeping bag so the kids wouldn't freeze that last night, but that's it. I didn't give in to any more begging. I blocked Vanessa's number after she refused to talk anyway. As far as I can tell, I did the minimum I could to protect my home. Now, Reddit, AITA for going through with all this. I mean, I feel justified legally and logically, but I also didn't want to absolutely ruin my sister's life. I really need an outside perspective here. Update 2, 2 weeks later. I found out why my parents really did this. It's been 2 weeks since I posted that first update, and my life is a whirlwind of legal forms and family drama. After talking to Professor Chen, I formally filed a small claims lawsuit against my parents and Vanessa. We itemized everything: damages, stolen items, repairs, etc. My lawyer guided me through the paperwork, and I spent an afternoon delivering copies of the claim to my parents. As soon as the lawsuit papers were served, everything exploded. My dad completely freaked out. The next afternoon, he showed up at my school, where I teach. I was in class when I got a frantic email from the principal. "Your father is here and upset. Please come speak to him." I excused myself to find Dad pacing by the administration office, red-faced and yelling. He demanded I drop the case. Before I could respond, security politely asked him to leave and give us space. I caught his eye just long enough to see pure desperation. Later, after school, Mr. Reynolds pulled me aside. He looked worried. He said he'd never seen my dad like this. Pale, eyes darting, mumbling about losing the house. This only fueled my suspicion that money was at the root of this. I thanked him for handling swallowing it and retreated to my classroom, shaking. This can't just be about being vindictive, I thought. Something else is going on. That evening, as I paced my living room, I decided to do some digging. I called my friend Emily, the one who works as a loan officer at our local credit union where my parents bank, under the guise of asking about our family home loan rates. Over dinner, I casually steered the conversation to anything new with their branch. After a while, Emily looked uneasy and quietly told me, "Hey, you didn't hear this from me, but your parents took out a second mortgage on their house about 8 months ago. A big one." I nearly choked on my soup. "A second mortgage?" I asked, and Emily nodded, adding that the amount was huge and that it surprised her they'd qualify without an apparent reason. I thanked her, but could barely focus on the rest of our meal. A second mortgage would explain a lot. 8 months ago aligns with when Vanessa moved into my place. I looked back at their lease listing. Sure enough, the closing date was right around then. Suddenly, everything clicked. They were in deep financial trouble, it seemed, and were scrambling for quick cash. But where did the money go? It was starting to smell worse. At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Trevor. I tried not to think the worst as I opened it. He bluntly wrote, "I know what your parents did, and I'm done with it. We need to talk." The text made my heart pound. We met that night. I was nervous. Who knew what he'd reveal? Trevor looked tired and angry. After a long pause, he started explaining. My parents had approached him back in November with this plan in a very calculated way. They promised to pay his rent if he moved into my place with Vanessa, effectively giving them free rent. He said he and Vanessa agreed at first, thinking it was a good deal. Then Trevor dropped the bombshell. My parents never paid a cent of rent. None. The promised checkbook from Mom was blank. Dad had sold off almost all of my valuable stuff, including my gaming PC, my watches, and even the jewelry from Grandma, to cover bills for themselves. Trevor showed me texts where Dad would joke about free storage for them, while Mom faked smiles about helping. He said that one day he randomly found our security deposit return letter. They had forged my signature on a form in the trash, and realized we'd essentially funded all of this. He was furious that we, the supposed victims, had been manipulated for their benefit. Trevor actually looked ashamed as he explained all this to me. He apologized over and over. "Alex, we honestly thought we were doing a favor by moving into your place," he said quietly. "We had no idea they'd take our stuff too. If we had known, we never would have agreed." His voice shook a bit. I nodded because I believed him. Hearing it from him cleared up a lot of my anger. It turns out our parents had lied to both of us in different ways to make this happen. That night I got a call from Vanessa. She'd read Trevor's texts and was beside herself. We talked for hours. She had no clue about the money or the selling of my stuff, just the same story about needing space. She was crying, shocked at her parents, and apologizing profusely for hurting me. It felt strange crying with her over the phone. Just a month ago, we were at each other's throats. She said she's on my side now, 100%. It was actually a relief having her there with me. At least I wasn't alone in this. Meanwhile, word is out. The extended family chat is in full meltdown. Aunts, uncles, cousins are all chiming in. Some relatives are now saying, "Oh wow, I always thought your parents were hiding something." Others still think I'm cold-hearted. One aunt posted in the chat, "Family drama on Facebook? Seriously?" And it set half the group off. One uncle privately texted me, "You were so right, I was worried about that house buying thing last year." But another cousin snapped at him, "Stop taking sides. This is not a pretty picture for any of us. It's a mess." The biggest surprise was Grandma's reaction. She called me late last night, distraught but also strangely relieved. She confessed that she had suspected Dad's gambling had gotten out of hand, but had no proof. Apparently, she's been quietly saving her own money for years, worried he was dipping into it. When she heard the details, especially that he'd sold Grandma's engagement ring, she was furious. She told me she never trusted him after my parents took out that mortgage. Grandma even offered to testify if I needed her to. Hearing her support meant the world. I've never been prouder of her. Through all this, my parents have been scrambling. They deny everything to anyone who still listens to them. My mom posted a weird Facebook status about secrets tearing families apart, which was promptly screenshotted by everyone. My dad texted me calling me brainwashed by Trevor and saying I'm making mountains out of molehills. It's infuriating. They're acting like I'm the unreasonable one. My lawyer says I should expect them to lash out like this, so I try not to let it get to me. Professor Chen and I talked again this week. He said that with all the evidence I have, the eviction notice, Trevor's messages, Grandma's statements, plus my documentation, I have a slam dunk case. He even said I could consider going after them criminally. Theft and fraud, felony charges, the whole 9 yards. He said our state allows one-party recordings, so what I caught on tape counts. That both scares me and intrigues me. But mostly, I'm just trying to move forward. I've had virtually no sleep until this weekend. I've been staying up late scribbling in a notebook, organizing receipts, just building the paper trail. I met with a court clerk to double-check the small claims procedures. My boss is aware of the situation now. She knows I was distracted and has been supportive, covering classes for me if I need to appear in court during school hours. My friends and a couple of sympathetic co-workers have offered to help run errands, or even witness if needed. It feels good not to go through this alone. I still question myself, though. When I signed the eviction notice, did I overreact? My parents keep pushing me to forgive and forget. I wonder if, despite everything, I should just move on quietly to keep family peace. But then I look at my empty living room and the vanished items, and I can't do that. I'm the one who had her home stolen. So AET for standing this ground. I'm furious, but I also feel guilty some nights. I see my dad in my dreams as just a nervous, broken man. plan. The other side of me thinks, if the roles were reversed and I had the evidence they did now, I would act exactly like I'm acting. I just want to make sure I'm not being crazy about it. I would appreciate an outside perspective. Update 3, 5 weeks later. My father confessed everything, and it's worse than I thought. The small claims hearing is now just 1 week away. I've been preparing nonstop, lining up receipts, finalizing that spreadsheet with costs, and talking to witnesses. Even our building super said he could testify that I said no family was moving in. I'm going over every detail of the lawyer's checklist. And there's a big new twist. My dad actually came to my door late one night alone, begging me not to press charges. It was 11 p.m. when I heard a soft knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I answered it. There he was, eyes red and puffy, wearing my dad's old plaid pajamas. He looked like he had aged years overnight. He blurted out immediately, "Alexandria, we need to talk before the court date." He seemed terrified. I let him in with a firm, "Just for a minute, I've got to work tomorrow." Moments later, he was on his knees in my living room, tears streaming down his face. Honestly, I almost felt sorry. He admitted to everything. He said he'd been way in over his head. A $47,000 gambling debt on sports and casino betting. 3 years of losses, he said. The second mortgage he took barely covered half. The rest was from loan sharks who were breathing down his neck. I gasped and asked, "Why would you do this to us?" With trembling hands, he then told me the whole scheme in detail. He and Mom saw my entire trip as an opportunity. I would be out of the country for a long time, so we wouldn't suspect anything. They lied to Vanessa that I extended my lease, knowing I'd return earlier. They moved our sister in, sold my belongings, and were going to say I did it to myself when I got back. He said he never intended me to even see my apartment in this state. They thought by then I'd be settling into Morocco life. I fought back tears hearing how calculated it was. And then he told me the worst part. They sold my grandmother's engagement ring, the family heirloom I inherited. He pawned it for $2,800. I felt like I was punched in the chest. That ring was priceless to me and to my grandmother. Hearing that from his mouth was devastating. My dad kept apologizing and asking for forgiveness. He warned that the loan sharks would hurt him and possibly us if he went to jail. He begged me to make some arrangement instead. He even offered to write me a check on the spot if I'd agree. I just stared at him, heart hammering, feeling torn between rage and fear. He was undeniably really scared. Finally, I said I needed time to think and asked him to leave. I walked him to the door, but not before whispering, "We'll see you in court." The moment I closed the door, I pulled out my phone. I had been recording the entire time, legal in my state as long as one party in the conversation agrees, and I have a right to my own safety. I uploaded the audio to my lawyer immediately. Then I called Vanessa. We met at a cafe the next day, and I played the part of the recording I'd transcribed for her. She started crying when she heard Dad on tape. That night, we sat in her kitchen and vented. Vanessa said she felt foolish for not questioning anything and asked me how I was doing. For the first time in a month, I felt almost normal sitting there with her. It's been absolute chaos. My phone won't stop buzzing with messages. Some family members are horrified on my behalf. Aunt Linda texted, "I'm so sorry, we had no idea." Uncle Mark, who used to side with Dad, confessed he always suspected something shady. My grandma, meanwhile, barged into Mom's house tonight and demanded to know everything. I guess Mom finally caved because Grandma called me shouting that she's never been so furious. She said she knew Dad had been losing money gambling again. She actually threatened to turn him in for my sake. It's wild. I've never been more grateful for Grandma's tough love. My parents, predictably, are on the defensive. Mom sent me a text saying I should respect our family and give grace. Dad keeps writing to my lawyer calling me unstable. It's absurd. The shift is total. They're acting like I'm the problem. I went back to Professor Chen with the update. He looked stunned but nodded grimly. He said we absolutely have enough evidence for not just small claims, but for actual criminal charges if I want. Fraud, theft, conspiracy, all of it. He said something like, "If you have your grandmother's ring selling phone call on tape, that's a slam dunk felony." Hearing that felt surreal. I never thought I'd hear such words from the man who taught me contract law. Now I'm at a crossroads. I want justice and to never see my stuff stolen again. But I'm also shaking at the thought of sending my dad to jail. Part of me remembers the little boy I once knew in him, and I feel guilty. I keep thinking, could I have handled this differently? At the same time, what if he runs out of money next month? What if he tries this stunt again? I guess I'm realizing that even though it hurts, I can't just go back to trusting them blindly. So here it is. Reddit, AITA. If I move ahead with criminal charges on top of the civil case, Dad begged me not to ruin his life, but he isn't the one who suffered here. I just want to make sure I'm not overreacting. I would appreciate any honest advice. Update 4, final, 3 months later. Here's how everything ended. After months of drama, things have finally settled, and I wanted to share the resolution. Legal settlement. We settled everything in civil court. My parents agreed to pay me back $15,000 over 3 years. This covers all repairs, stolen items, and legal fees. We signed a detailed agreement. The payments come out of Dad's paycheck automatically. If they miss one payment, I can reopen the case. I insisted on a bit of interest to make it fair. It took some tough negotiations, but everyone signed off. It was very formal. We actually met at the lawyer's office and had to attest our signatures at a notary. Honestly, it was surreal to see my signature on a stack of papers. Father's accountability. Dad has actually stuck to the plan. He checked himself into a professional gambling recovery program, paid for by Grandma, and started therapy. He attends GA meetings several times a week and has a sponsor. His spending habits have completely changed. He shows me his bank statements. payments, all gambling apps deleted, and even a separate savings account for these payments. Last week, he handed me his last 6 pay stubs, and I literally saw each installment go straight to my account. It's as if overnight Dad became diligent. Grandma gives him moral support. She took a GA meeting with him once, kept scribbling notes in her purse, bless her. It's been almost 12 weeks since he gambled, and this is the longest I've seen him go without a bet since he started years ago. Parents' consequences. To make that first payment, my parents had to liquidate some assets. They sold their big sailboat and RV. They also downsized their house. They're moving into a smaller home by next month to cut costs. Mom reluctantly took a part-time job at a local bookstore, her first paid job in many years, to help cover their share. They have a strict budget now. Color-coded spreadsheets, the works. They even started attending marriage counseling because Dad blamed Mom for encouraging this swap. It's pretty ironic. Dad cried during a session saying, "I was trying to help my daughter, not ruin her life." Well, too late for that. It's still weird at family events, but it's a sign that at least they're taking responsibility in some way. Sisters' reconciliation. Vanessa and I have been slowly rebuilding trust. We decided to take baby steps, literally. Her kids are a big part of why I did what I did. We now see each other at least once a week. Once a week, Vanessa, her kids, and I meet up for an outing, playground, zoo, whatever, so we can have normal sister time with our kids around. We even had a mini sibling summit where we cooked dinner together and talked honestly, with the kids playing in the other room. She's doing much better now. She signed a new lease on a nice apartment and she paid me $200 back for the couch, which I told her was unnecessary, but she insisted as a gesture. The kids think Grandma and Grandpa, my parents, just made a mistake and are learning to say sorry. Vanessa's still nervous about trusting them, but she's stronger now. It actually feels really good to hear her genuinely say, "I'm so sorry, sis. I promise you deserve better." New boundaries. I learned the hard way. No more spare keys or trust without paperwork. I changed all my locks myself, twice just to be safe, and set a new habit. I only open the door for people I know for sure. My parents don't have any access to my place at all. Any family gatherings now happen in public or at Grandma's, never at my house. I quietly left the large family chat, too much drama, and made one group chat with just Vanessa and our oldest friends for updates and support. I even got a new phone number that only my closest friends and work have. Holidays are divided. Some are with Vanessa's kids, some are just me and Grandma, because honestly, I needed at least one family member who'd keep it chill. It took some getting used to, but I actually sleep easier knowing no one can just slip into my home again. Emotional aftermath. Therapy has been a lifesaver. I had a few really tough nights. I still sometimes wake up thinking about that ring or some cherished item. I cry behind closed doors when I remember how tranquil I used to feel coming home, or when I think of the first time I get paid to throw away my bank statement. Long story, but I'm healing. I've learned to set boundaries and advocate for myself. I told my therapist, I keep replaying those moments, but I also keep reminding myself it was 1 year overseas versus everything I own at home. She said it's okay to be angry and betrayed. We talked a lot about trust. I realized I was giving into guilt thinking about Vanessa's kids a lot. I made peace that I did what I had to do to protect my home. Grandma's ring. We never recovered the actual ring. Dad confessed he sold it to a pawn shop the day after he sold the PC. Grandma and I went to that pawn shop together. She insisted. We found out they had already resold it. Some tourist bought it. It's gone. Grandma cried when I told her, but then she did something sweet. She took me to pick out a new gold ring and bought it for me. She said, "Your grandfather wanted you to have something to remember him by." I still wear it. It's not the same ring, but it feels like carrying Grandma's love on my hand. Unexpected positives. Funny as it sounds, some good things have come out of this. My bond with Grandma is stronger than ever. We text every day now, and she calls me to vent about Dad if needed. Vanessa and I, after the shock wore off, now are even more honest with each other than before. I feel empowered. I stood up to my family, and my confidence that I can handle tough stuff is way higher now. Professor Chen was so impressed with how I handled everything, especially the legalities, that he even offered me a part-time position co-teaching a business law seminar he's running. So if I ever wanted to dip my toes into law teaching, who knows? Current status. I decided to stay here and finish the school year instead of rushing back to Morocco. I signed a lease on a cute new apartment in the city. No keys given to anyone this time, and I'm actually content. My landlord has seen me through this and even told me not to worry about rent if needed. Dad just started a stable new job as an IT consultant at a firm. No gambling on the side, I hope. Mom is doing bookkeeping for a friend's small business. They've kept up with the payments every month. We're 6 months in with no defaults. It's been the hardest few months of my life, but I truly believe I did the right thing. I lost the illusion of what I thought my parents were, and I had to draw a line in the sand to get my life back. I often remind myself, I will always have this home and my stuff again, and now I have a strengthened spine, whereas giving in would have meant losing everything. TLDR. My family knowingly moved my sister into my home without my consent. I evicted them. It turned into legal battles. We settled. Parents paying me back. Dad got gambling help. I cut off a lot of contact. It hurt deeply, but I have peace of mind back now. I stood up for myself, and I don't regret it. Ultimately, I think I was not the asshole. I just protected my home and my dignity. Thank you to everyone who supported me and gave advice. I'm doing better now and grateful for the sanity check from this community. I couldn't have gotten through without knowing others understand how messed up this is. I'll never look at family the same way, but I'm okay moving forward with my life.